Hello and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to, I guess, the start of Christmas. And I know it's a little bit early still, but we just had to get into this. This looks like the best selection box I have ever seen. The guys at Vocation Brewery have, well, they've pulled it out the bag, I was going to say, but they've pulled it out of the Christmas stocking because they've done a selection box, a range of beers, unsurprisingly, from their Naughty and Nice series. But now there's 5 brand new ones, all in different chocolate flavours, and all flavours that you can get in, well, a box of Christmas chocolates that definitely looks nothing like this. Yes, indeed, of course, the massive elephant in the room is that, well, it's been based off a box of celebrations, hasn't it? Clearly. I'm not sure how they got around the copyright, but to be honest, I don't think they care. As far as I can tell, these have been flying out the door because everyone's been very excited by the concept, and I was one of them. So, yeah. But to go through it then, well, let's do a quick unboxing, shall we? I have already done a proper unboxing mini video of this, so hands up, I have already had these out of the box. They've actually been in the fridge, so I can get straight into them, but let's do it anyway. Along with this in the the delivery box was this little parcel with a nice Vocation sticker on the front, and if we whip that off, in here you get a load of nice little freebies. So let me shake those out. That is everything, and as you can see, you get just a boatload of Vocation stickers, which is pretty cool. If nothing else, not sure where I'll stick them, but find somewhere. And then a load of Vocation beer mats for, not these beers of course, because these are a limited run, but they're normal stuff, Life and Death there. Hop, skip and juice, that last one. But yeah, nice little touch, that Vocation. Thank you very much. And now we're on to the main event. So let's get into it. What beers are in this lovely looking box? Can we just take a minute to appreciate how beautifully presented this is? Of course, this branding exercise is absolutely fantastic, but just look at that box. Look at it. As far as boxes go, it's a very, very nice box. In here then, we have, well, first up, a little card with details of all the beers on the back, which we'll go to in a minute. This more fantastic packaging with this beautiful, just protective kind of ribbed paper slip. And then, what a selection is that? You get 5 beers and the Vocation V tumbler glass, which I'm very, very happy to have, to be honest. Right then, I'm going to go from left to right. This is the order I'm also going to review these in, and they're also in ABV order, which I was surprised by the fact that all of these beers are not only different ABVs, they step it up in 1 ABV increment. So we're going 6 at this end all the way to 10 over here, which is just another very nice touch. So starting off up this end with definitely not a Maltesers chocolate stout. It is the malted honeycomb chocolate stout. It is creamy milk chocolate stout with malted milk honeycomb sphere flavour, the lighter way to enjoy stout. That is cheeky, Vocation. That is very cheeky. Then on to the whipped nougat chocolate stout, milk chocolate stout with light whipped vanilla nougat. I'm going to go with nougat flavour. It's out of this world. So that's definitely not a Milky Way. Where are we here? Definitely not a Milky Way stout. Then we move on. This one is definitely not a Twix stout. Caramel cookie chocolate stout. It says crunchy cookie and smooth caramel flavours draped in a silky milk chocolate stout. Stick 2 fingers up to thirst. Which, to be honest, cracking in at I think 8%. It's not going to be very thirst quenching, but it should be tasty. Then we're on to one that, I'll be honest, I am very excited for. Peanut Caramel Chocolate Imperial Stout. Just in general, impy stouts that have that kind of peanut buttery chocolate thing going on are always fantastic. But this, as I say, definitely not a Snickers Imperial Stout, as I'm going to call it. The Peanut Caramel Chocolate Imperial Stout, the Milk Chocolate Imperial Stout packed with roasted peanut flavour and a caramel nougat centre. Nougat, I should have worked out what I was going to say before I started this video. It says, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Again, very cheeky, and I absolutely love it. And finally, the big one, the definitely not a bounty Imperial Stout. Coconut Milk Chocolate Imperial Stout. Juicy exotic coconut centre enrobed, that is a fancy word for a beer, in a thick and creamy milk chocolate stout. The toast of paradise. Again, a little bit cheeky there. I mean, as you can tell, I say I'm excited about a lot of beer. This is properly exciting. So how's the rest of this video going to work? Well, I'm going to give you a very quick review of each one of these beers in this video. However, before this video even came out, I've reviewed all of these beers individually and then mashed them up into this one. There's no way I can drink them all in one go because, frankly, I'd be wasted, and it would be a waste because each of these needs some time and dedication to properly appreciate. So we are going to jump in straight away right now with the first one, the definitely not a Maltese stout, and then we're going to work our way through them. As a result, my clothes are going to change. The camera angle is probably going to get a bit squiffy, but don't worry about it. All the content is still going to be right here. And if you want the really, really in-depth review of any one of these, look back, or I'll try and remember to put links up there as they kind of come on screen, so you can go through and watch the whole thing if you really want to. So, what am I looking forward to? Well, this first one, actually, I'm not even in the right position there. The Maltese Themed One. I love really, really malty beers, and I think Maltese might be my favourite chocolate as a result of that. Just I love malt stuff. So that one I'm very excited about. And then the last two, the Snickers themed and the Bounty themed, I think they're going to be absolutely incredible. Not to say I'm not interested in the other two. I think the Twix will be just an excellent, excellent kind of gateway impy stout. I'm not sure how the Milky Way one's going to go. Yeah, that one, I just don't really know what they're going to do with it, but I will be interested to see. So let's find out, I guess. Let's break into Vocation's Naughty and Nice. But first, I do need to go and wash that glass. So I now have my freshly cleaned Vocation glass, which came in this selection box, and let's have a quick look at that. It's beautiful lettering on the front, and the Vocation main logo on the back there as well. And I do really like this glass style, so yeah, props Vocation, you made me very happy with that one indeed. Let's get into it, shall we? Before we break into it then, here is a quick look at this fantastic can design. Let me just tilt it a little for you so you can read it properly. But Vocation Special Edition, Naughty and Nice, Malted Honeycomb Chocolate Stout. And as you would expect, there is a bit of info on the back there as well, which we'll get into a little bit later. But for now, I am very, very excited for this one. Let's get into it. So, aromas. It does smell like their straight up Naughty and Nice stout. It does have a honeycomb sweetness to it, a little bit sweeter, a little bit more caramel perhaps, and maybe just a little bit less bitter than the regular version. Let's get into it, shall we? Cheers. That is pretty stunning. The temptation just to drink this quickly in one go is large because it's super smooth, it's sweet without being cloying, and it has got just that extra bit of malt character that really just makes me fall in love with it. There are issues with this beer. It's not perfect, but it is the baby of this box set. It is just so ridiculously easy to drink. Now, I said there were problems with it. They've brought forward that kind of honeycomb cinder toffee sweetness. They've brought forward that big malt bill, but they have lost maybe just a little bit too much of the bitterness. I need to keep remembering that this is 6% and not a big impy. Actually, I think for the ABV it is about right. You could have knocked up the bitterness a bit, but then you would have had to have knocked up the sweetness a bit to balance it. Or would you? I don't know. To be honest, I'm not going to complain. It is near perfection in terms of a 6% stout for me. I mean, I would like a bit more, well, a few more rough edges, weirdly. It's almost too easy to drink, but I'm not really going to complain about that now, am I? Right then, on to the next one. And this one is the beer I'm calling definitely not a Milky Way stout. Just before we break into this one then, here is a quick look at the can. As with all of these, the design is, well, very reminiscent of the chocolate bar it definitely isn't meant to taste like. More info on the back there. I suspect that'll be very similar to the previous one. But yeah, looks pretty fine to me. I had forgot to say, this one, as we are incrementing white 1% on each of these, is 7%. This beer. Right then, aromas. I mean, to be honest, very reminiscent of the previous beer, as you would expect, but it has got a vanilla marshmallowy quality about the aroma. There's certainly less sweet caramel biscuity notes this time round. It's much more, yeah, sweet vanilla toffee flavours, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. Not much roastiness at all, actually, on the nose. There's not nothing there. It's just not. There's not heaps and bounds. So not much more to say on the aroma. So let's get into it. Cheers. It's madness. Madness. I've actually had to sit the beer down for a minute and just have a quiet word with myself. I mean, Milky Way has a flavour that, for those who've never had one, whether not available in your country or whatever, that, and I think the Milky Ways in America are different to the ones here, so you'll have to look up the differences. But there's a distinct, very sweet but moreish flavour that they have, and no one, well, certainly I've never had that quite the same in anything else. It's a bit marshmallowy, but there's something more to it. It's a bit different, and they've managed to encapsulate it pretty much perfectly, which is, yeah, insanity. It really is. That is, of course, with each of these beers, I'm going to kind of be forced to say, do I prefer it to the previous ones I've tried? With this one, no. This does taste more like the chocolate it's trying to taste like than the previous one, but that doesn't mean it's a better beer. This one is a percent higher, doesn't taste it if I'm honest, it's masking it very, very well. But the flavour profile is a little one-dimensional. This one is just a little bit of a one-trick pony. It's more sweet, it's more sickly, arguably. I'm kind of glad it's a higher ABV because that alcohol might just be managing to balance the sugar situation, because currently that much sweetness in a lower ABV beer might just overkill everything, to be honest. But it is very, very nice once again. And just like that, we're on to beer number 3. This one, of course, is definitely not a Twix themed beer, and it is called the Caramel Cookie Chocolate Stout. Biscuit, caramel and chocolate in a stout. Well, it's not exactly the first time that's been done. There's a very popular Northern Monk beer in some UK supermarkets, which is pretty much exactly that description. So yeah, we've seen this before, which kind of means it's got a harder job to impress. Before we break into it then, here is a quick look at the can. I mean, they've got the branding absolutely spot on for all of these, I think it's fair to say. Info in the back, as usual. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's see what happens. So, aromas. It does smell like caramel biscuit. There's no doubt. It's very sweet caramel forward. Nice biscuity malt base. I'd say it does smell like a Twix, but I mean, Twixes really aren't the most, I guess, aromatic of chocolates. It's smells quite a lot like a Tunnock's caramel wafer, that kind of thing. But the chocolate doesn't smell quite as sweet on this as it did in the previous Milky Way themed beer, which is probably a good thing because the caramel element is definitely going to bring that back. And also, leave your nose over it for a moment, you do start to get a little bit of that prickly, boozy heat. And there is just a hint of something else in there. It's actually the caramel element. It's starting to bring out a little bit of a vanilla-y quality, and as a result, it smells quite a lot like those little creme caramel things that were very popular, well, certainly in Europe in the I'm sure they still are, to be honest, and you can get them in the discount German supermarkets here, at least. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If not, don't worry about it. It's just a bit of a custardy vanilla vibe that's going along with that caramel. So it looks fantastic in the glass still. Head sticking around, which is quite surprising given the ABV. Let's give it a go. Cheers. I mean, I'm smiling, right? I am smiling. It's big, it's sweet, it's masking that ABV like you would not believe. The mouthfeel is good. I would have expected, as these beers climb the ladder in terms of strength, that mouthfeel would also improve. But actually, whilst it's far from saying it's a thin beer, it's possibly not as thick as either of the other two, which, given, as I said before, you can actually pick up a bit of light through it, that might go some way to understanding why that might be. Flavour-wise, I mean, it is big caramel biscuit. It is suffering a little bit from the same discretion that the previous beer made, which was that there's no big roastiness. I would have liked maybe a bit more depth, a bit more of that deep dark roast malt flavour to come through. But to be fair to them, they advertised you a beer that tastes like a caramel biscuit covered in chocolate, and quite frankly, I can't take much away from them on that part, because, well, that is exactly what it tastes like. It's certainly not necessarily the best beer with those flavour profiles in terms of my personal enjoyment, but find me an 8% beer that goes down as smoothly as that does, with the drinkability that that has, I think you'll be hard pressed, to be honest. This is a maltier beer because of the biscuit element, but it doesn't have any of that dark roastiness that I really want just a little hint of, even if it's only a tiny bit in a high ABV stout, and it's just not quite there. I'm not going to go as far as to say I would be disappointed had I bought this as a one-off, but undoubtedly the price would be quite high, and yeah, I don't know. It's very nice. If you like Twixes, if you like biscuit, caramel and chocolate, you are not going to go away from this going, that was awful. It tastes absolutely delicious, but just a little bit more of depth, earthy complexity for me would have made it absolutely perfect. And that is all I've got to say about it. And I guess that means it's time for number 4. Now, to be honest, time has flown with these. I was kind of thinking, oh, is this going to start getting repetitive and get bored? And before we know it, we're at number 4 already. And I did say that, well, actually, this one and the next one were the two I was most looking forward to. I love peanutty flavours in Impy Stouts, and this, being, well, Snickers orientated, is definitely going to have some of that, hopefully. Officially, this is called the Peanut Caramel Chocolate Imperial Stout. Before we get into it then, here is a quick look at the can, and it has got some very distinctive branding, this one, as all of them have, to be fair. Again, this is the same format as all of them. This one is a whopping 9%, as it is the 4th in the series, and we started at 6. Info on the back as usual there, but yeah, it is a great looking can. Let's do the aromas. So, oh, it smells, oh yeah, so all of the previous ones had sweetness as the predominant aroma, whether it was caramel, honeycomb, whatever. It was all very sugary on the nose. This one, whilst undeniably sweet, that nutty aroma really comes through. Little bit sweet, little bit salty, bit of umami, bit of peanut brittle kind of thing going on. And I think this might just be a bit roastier than some of the previous ones, which was my main complaint about them. So I've got high hopes. Let's get into it. Cheers. Wow. Okay. We're back in the ballpark now. Again, I'm going to reiterate some of the same small complaints I've had over previous beers, but this beer, out of all so far, is the one that probably diverges the most from the actual chocolate it's trying to replicate. But at the same time, or maybe even as a result of that, becomes the one that's more complex, more considered, more roasty, depthy, complex, almost more of just a generally better complex beer. And whilst there is still room for improvement on that kind of deep malt, rich, roasty front that I would want from a 9% Imperial Stout, it's a damn sight better than the last couple were. That nuttiness continues to evolve on the nose, getting a little bit broader, a little bit more dynamic. It's getting even a touch boozier on the nose now as well. And for a big, deep, rich beer, it's actually got quite a clean aroma. It doesn't come across on the aroma like it's going to be cloying or overly treacly or anything like that. And to be fair, it isn't. It is quite a... It's kind of refreshing for the style. It's not a refreshing beer by any means, but compared to most, it is a bit. And we haven't actually talked about mouthfeel, which is probably an important component to this. But, and I said this about the previous beer as well, I would have expected as we go up in ABV that the mouthfeel and the body on these beers becomes much more luscious, much more intense. And it hasn't really changed a whole deal from that 6%er, or at least it doesn't feel like it. Whilst I wouldn't call it a thin beer, it's certainly not thick for the style either, so something to keep in mind. However, I must say, I absolutely love this. I think it's fantastic. I would like it, yes, to be a little bit roastier, a little bit more depthy, a little bit thicker, but as I say, Christmas Day afternoon, I would be absolutely delighted if you stuck a can of that in front of me, so it's definitely not all bad. And I guess with that, it's time for the big one. Vocation's Naughty and Nice, the beer that I'm calling definitely not a bounty Imperial Stout, knocking in at a whopping 10%. But what is the official name? Well, as always, to consult the little Vocation card, this is called the Coconut Milk Chocolate Imperial Stout. So then, what am I expecting here? Well, coconut stouts are good. Coconut dark beer in general is good. I do, however, have two little concerns. One of them, for anyone who's watched any of the previous videos, well, you're probably going to know what I'm going to say. All of the previous beers, really, possibly except the first one, I always had, well, just something a little missing for their big, impressive accolades, mainly their ABV, if we're honest. But yeah, all the others maybe just fell a little bit flat in the roasty toasty section, and I'm expecting no different here. That said, this could well be the world's most easy to drink 10% beer if that is the case, but we'll get onto that later and see if that's true. But the other concern I've got about this surrounds an entirely different beer. This beer, to be precise. Some of you may have seen the review I did on this beer. It's just simply called Monkey by Blue Monkey, which doesn't give a lot away, but as you can tell by the design there, it's a little bit bounty inspired, and this is a 4% chocolate coconut mild, which, in comparison, doesn't really strike as a... Well, they're similar, they're dark beers, they've got coconut in, but this is a whopping 10% Imperial Stout. Surely it's going to be loads better. Well, the problem that this Vocation beer has got is that this Blue Monkey beer is a contender for Beer of the Year from me, and as a result, well, it's going to have to do a very, very good job to get anywhere near this. Of course, they're going to be very different, but this will be interesting. And a little fact that some of you may not know, but actually both of these breweries, well, they're connected. They have similar founding members. It's yeah, this is a true head-to-head in more way than one, but we'll find out, I guess. Before we get into it then, here is a quick look at that can. I mean, let's be fair, the artwork, as with all of these, has been absolutely fantastic. Info in the back in the same format as all of them. But yeah, I don't know, something about this one, I think it's just the slightly more colourful can design. I'm really digging. Right then, aromas. Now, truthfully, it does remind me quite a lot of that Blue Monkey beer I talked about a minute ago, and it is roasty, it is coconutty, which is a good sign. There's a bit of kind of candied sweetness in there somewhere. There's also a bit of a strange citrus freshness. It's very, very subtle. And I am a little bit worried because sometimes beers that have that often have it when they're not meant to, and it can be a bit of an off flavour. But let's get into it. Cheers. Where's the coconut, Vocation? Where is the coconut? Now, I'm being a bit dramatic, sure. It is coconut flavoured, there is no doubt, but there's not enough. It's not massively huge, intense coconut. It's, to be fair to them, nice, subtle, creamy. It is bounty flavoured, but to say what they did with the Maltesers and the Milky Way ones, where it was massively just a literal interpretation of the chocolate, this feels like just a coconut chocolate themed beer. I mean, Now, there is some good news here. I said, could this be the easiest drinking 10% stout ever seen? Yeah, actually, I think it could be. It is ridiculous. There's no alcohol burn really whatsoever. Only now, having taken a few sips, I sit back and start to feel just a little warming running through me. But whilst it is nice, I'm not being wowed. There's no big punchy flavours here. It's really... Okay, the can has been in the fridge, but it didn't come straight out the fridge. I left it out for half an hour first. It's cool. It's not freezing, and despite that, it's alarmingly bereft of coconut. There's a bit of chocolate sweetness, and that slightly odd citrus note I picked up on the aroma is also there in the aftertaste. And I've had this in other beers, and I'm pretty confident it's a sanitizing agent, a cleaning product, something like that that's not meant to be in there because, well, frankly, it's so mild in this, it's not offensive, but it just doesn't really feel like it's meant to be there. It is interesting that they produced a heavily coconut-themed beer and didn't include toasty or coconut on the tasting notes. I think they know that this may not have gone to plan, and it kind of shows in that labelling. Honestly, I think Vocation have dropped an absolute bollock with that one, because getting big coconut flavours out of a beer is entirely possible. This itty bitty 4% real ale does it in droves. Much better than this very expensive, very high ABV Impy from, well, theoretically one of the best in the country. Don't get me wrong, I like Vocation and I like their beers, but this one, look, loads going for it. It's super boozy and it doesn't taste like it. It's sweet, it tastes good, it tastes like chocolate. Again, it's a bit like chocolate milk, like a lot of the other ones were. But I'm not wowed. And for a 10% Christmas special, I want to be taken off my feet, and I'm just not. And actually, mouthfeel-wise, it's no better than the 6% starting beer here, if not, to be honest, slightly worse. It's really not all that. It is a bit splashy. So we end this series on a catatonic disappointment. This is rough. This is rough. And I feel sorry for people who've saved away, bought themselves one of these boxes, or got, you know, friends or family to buy it for them for Christmas. They're looking forward to it and they're waiting for it. Because if you do what I've done, start with the 6% and work your way up, which would make sense, you're going to open this box and be eclectic at that first one or two. And by the end, you're going to be sat going, I wish I just had 5 of the Malteser ones, because, to be honest, that's kind of where I'm at. And I think, unfortunately, that is all there is to say about it. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you would be so kind. And I'll catch you next time. Cheers.